Chairs No Waiting, episode number 163, the eBullet, November 2011. Two Chairs No Waiting is brought to you each week by the fine folks over at Weaver's Department Store at weaversdepartmentstore.com. Drop by over Weaver's and you'll find all kinds of wonderful Mayberry items. They got the 50th anniversary show on DVD. Well, it's actually the 50th anniversary DVD set. Just drop by over there and check it out at weaversdepartmentstore.com. Two Chairs No Waiting is also brought to you by donations from listeners like you. Episode number 163 is brought to you by Jim Clark and the Andy Griffith Show Rerun Watchers Club. Hey, I want to thank Jim. I want to thank him for allowing us to use what we're going to use tonight, the eBullet. And I should mention that we have a podcast contributor, Angela Mitchell. We want to thank her, too, for her donation or contribution to keeping the show alive and keeping things on the web. So, folks, we want to thank you for joining us. My name is Allan Newsome. I'm the host of Two Chairs No Waiting, and it's great to have you here with me in Mayberry. I just got back from the Mayberry cruise, a cruise to Mayberry 6. And guess what? There's going to be a cruise to Mayberry 7 coming up next year, 2012, October 29th through November the 3rd. So we're going to be having some information about that out on the event calendar. If you go to imayberry.com, it'll start showing up really soon, but it's going to be there. So put it on your calendar, October 29th through November the 3rd, 2012. Ooh, can't wait. All right. So what we're talking about today, though, is the eBullet. Now, some of you folks may not realize or may not know that the eBullet is the official newsletter of the Andy Griffith Show Rerun Watchers Club. And Jim Clark, the presiding goober for the Rerun Watchers Club, is the one who puts together this wonderful newsletter for all of us Mayberry fans to be able to find out what is going on in and around Mayberry and the Andy Griffith Show, cast members, events, everything like that. It's all there at the eBullet, and you need to go check it out. If you go to imayberry.com, you'll see a link right there on the front page to get to the eBullet. Used to be called the Bullet, but now it's electronic only, so it's called the eBullet. Well, it's electronic only unless you print it out, and then it's then it's yours. But we're going to be talking about the November 2011 issue. Now, we've talked about these in the past on the podcast, and folks seem to enjoy them. So I thought I'd go through it again. Now, we'll hit some of the highlights that are in the eBullet, but by no means will we be hitting it all because Jim fills the newsletter with all kinds of wonderful, wonderful Mayberry information, and he's kind enough to allow us to use it on the podcast in oral format. But I admit that reading speaks louder than words. So y'all drop by and check it out because you'll be able to see all the pictures and everything else over on the eBullet. Well, let's get started on this, and I'll give you some of the information first about things that are on the calendar. So on the calendar this year, we're going to be seeing things, just going to hit you some of the highlights of things that are coming up the rest of this year and the beginning of next year. And you'll find these if you go to the bullet, the eBullet. If you go there and look at the November issue, you'll be able to see all the events that are coming up. But I'm going to hit some of the highlights. December the 8th of this year. And also coming up later in the year as well, March 10th and March 14th with different episodes. Neil Brower, the author of Mayberry 101, is going to be at the Andy Griffith Museum. So drop by over there and you'll be able to hear him give a presentation on December the 8th about the Christmas story. And then later in the next year, actually March and April, he'll be presenting on other episodes. So drop by over at those locations or at that location, the Andy Griffith Museum. There's a link, there will be, in our show notes. So be sure and check those out because, wow, I tell you, it's a great time to drop by the Andy Griffith Museum. I've had people ask me, what is there to do at Mount Airy, Mayberry, if Mayberry Days isn't going on? Well, this is one of the things. So you can plan, if you're going to make a trip to Mount Airy, maybe you want to try to plan it around December the 8th. Or March 10th or April 14th of 2012. Or, check the calendar if you're listening to this later and see what's going on up in Mount Airy at the Andy Griffith Museum. Because not only will Neil be there on the 8th of December, Betty Lynn Thelma Lou, she's going to be greeting fans at the Andy Griffith Museum in Mount Airy from 12:30 to 3:30 p.m. And she'll have autographed pictures you can get signed at they're $10 for each picture and autograph. So you want to drop by there perhaps and check it out. And Betty does that, I believe, every month. So just check the event calendar and you'll be able to see what that is. Now, the event calendar, there's one in the bullet, obviously. But to keep the one that's up to date and one that you would want to look at if it's later when you're listening to this is go to imayberry.com and you'll be able to see it right there on the front page of the website. Because imayberry.com's got all kinds of information like that. So if you just go head over to imayberry.com and there's a link there that says event calendar. And if you click it, it'll show you Floyd's Barbershop event calendar. It's got all kinds of events showing on there. But if you're looking at it right now, you can head over to the eBullet because it's got up-to-date information as of the printing, which was today, actually. The day as I'm recording this is when it was printed. So let's get back in here and see what else is going on. On December the 30th, Ronnie Shell. Now, you remember him as Duke Slater on Gomer Pyle. Well, he's going to guest star in an episode of a TV show called Jessie on the Disney Channel. Now, you need to check your local listings to see what time, but you might want to check that out. Now, there's other things listed about Ronnie you would want to check out in the calendar. He's going to be appearing in Las Vegas and Lincoln City, Oregon, two different places, different dates, doing his comedy act. So you'd want to check that out as well. Now, heading on into next year, things you need to mark down on your calendar. We've got coming up, one of them it's a highlight for sure is the 15th annual George Lindsay UNA Film Festival in Florence, Alabama. Now, the details and everything that are going on there are to be determined, but I've heard a rumor, and I don't know how good the rumor is, but that perhaps Ernest Borgnine may be there again this year. He's been before, and I've been able to meet him. A great person. I really enjoy getting to meet him. Wow, Ernest Borgnine. Who thinks you're going to get to meet him? But the George Lindsay Film Festival, always a treat. I got to speak there last year, and it was a pleasure for me. I couldn't believe I got to be a part of one of the presentations there. Then coming up a little later in April 20th and 21st, they're going to have the second annual Mayberry Comes to Westminster in South Carolina, Westminster, South Carolina. All the details have not been worked out about that yet either, but mark it on your calendar because I know if you're like me, you need to get a head start on knowing when to be places. But it's April 20th and 21st in Westminster, South Carolina. July the 14th is a tentative date for Mayberry Comes to Graysville and the 12th annual Mayberry Squad Car Nationals that will be held in Graysville, Alabama. All the details are still working on that one as well, but again, mark them on your calendar, July 14th. Another big event coming up next year in August 24th and 25th, you're going to have Rodney Dillard and Maggie Peterson. They're going to be joined by several Mayberry tribute artists, including David Browning, Kenneth Otis Junkin, Jeff Howard Branch, and I believe I might be there as well, Floyd Allan, Newsome, Floyd Lawson, however you put that. So I may be there for a cruise-in on Friday night, which is a car event they have there. And then there's a benefit concert on that Saturday, the 25th, that'll be held to benefit the Montgomery County DARE program. This is a yearly event, and I've been privileged to be able to be a part of it for several different times, and I definitely encourage you to try to be there. Great show. Great show. Then, of course, the big event, well, one of the big events, is September 27th through the 30th. You'll have the 23rd annual Mayberry Days in Mount Airy, North Carolina. Wow, what a great event that always is. You'll be able to check out all the details about that if you go to mayberrydays.org. You'll be able to see everything about that. And there's links to a lot of these other things as well. The Rodney Dillard, Maggie Peterson thing I was talking about. If you go to bluegrassintroy.com, you'll be able to see it. And I'll have links in the show notes so you'll be able to see these things. All right, so now we're going to head into a little bit. There's more stuff, by the way, in the eBullet. So if you want to check it out, written, you'll be able to read all the calendar of events. But I'm going to read or give you some information here about the cast and crew of the Andy Griffith Show. Andy Griffith continues to enjoy staying close to home on beautiful Outer Banks of North Carolina as hurricane season finally winds down. He dodged major damage from major storms this year. That's great news. Great. So Andy's doing good. Don Knott's Legacy Fund is about halfway to its fundraising goal for creating a memorial park, including a statue, in Don's hometown of Morgantown. There's a website where you can find out all this information about it, and I'll have that in the show notes. A supplemental fundraiser for the Legacy Fund is being offered by Don's friend John Pipes. So if you can donate to that and make checks donatable, and you can be a part of trying to get the Legacy Fund funded so they can do a memorial park, including a statue for Don. So if you'd like to be a part of that, the information is in the eBullet, and the link will be on the website so you can check it out. Ron Howard and his Imagine Films are producers for J. Edgar in theaters nationwide now, and directed by Clint Wood and starring Leonardo DiCaprio. Ron is also producing the reignition of Arrested Development, with new episodes for TV and a feature film coming to theaters. Ron's expected to continue his role as the narrator. And Ron is also in pre-production as producer and director for a feature film, Rush, about Formula One racing, starring Russell Crowe and Olivia Wilde. And Ron still has plans. He's still working on them and hopes for the ambitious and complex project to bring about Stephen King's The Dark Towers to TV and theaters. There's a When I Find You, a short film based on 8 photos Ron selected in a contest called Project Imagination, with an 8 in it. It's kind of cool. Sponsored by Canon and written and directed by Ron's eldest daughter, Bryce Dallas Howard, had its premiere in New York City this month and will be available to watch on YouTube starting December the 16th. So you'll be able to check that out. George Lindsay Goober. He's enjoying official retirement, but keeps a full schedule. He was recently inducted into the Athletic Hall of Fame at the University of North Alabama in Florence, where he was a quarterback a few years back. The university is also building a black box theater that will be named in honor of George. Construction should be completed early next year in time for the 15th annual George Lindsay UNA Film Festival in March. And there's a story and a link to it. If you go to the eBullet online, you'll be able to check that out. Doug Dillard and his brother Rodney Dillard performed with their respective bands at a big celebration in September, marking the 100th anniversary of the birth of the father of bluegrass, Bill Monroe, at the International Bluegrass Hall of Fame in Owensboro, Kentucky. Rodney and his Dillard Band also have a new gospel CD out, and you can check that out at Weaver's Department Store. I bet you can find it. But it's the band has a new fan site also called Dillard Grass, and there's a link to that we'll have in the eBullet. So head over to the eBullet, and you'll be able to check all these links out, and you'll be able to see pictures too. There's a picture of Goober with his football uniform on. You don't want to miss that. So all of the original Dillards, Doug Dillard, Rodney Dillard, Dean Webb, and the late Mitch James, have been inducted into the Missouri Music Hall of Fame. That's great. Missouri Music Association's Hall of Fame. They're joined by their late pal, John Hartford, and by Charles Wolfe as the first members of the bluegrass genre in the initial class of Hall inductees. So we want to congratulate the Dillards for that. That's great. That's great. They deserve it. Maggie Peterson, Charlene. Maggie Peterson teamed up with her TV brother, Rodney Dillard, for several appearances at Mayberry-themed events this past year, 2011, including the Mayberry Squad Car Nationals in Graysville, Alabama, back in July, and the annual DARE fundraiser in North Carolina in August this past year. So Maggie's been staying busy in Mayberry. And Maggie and Betty Lynn, they also headlined Mayberry-themed musical fundraiser for Alzheimer's care and research in Roanoke, Virginia on November 12th, 2011. James Best, well, he's busy editing The Return of the Killer Shrews, a sequel to The Attack of the Killer Shrews, the cult classic in which he starred back in 1950s. The film, shot in California last summer, stars John Snyder and also features fellow Dukes of Hazzard actor Rick Hurst, as well as Jennifer Lyons, Bruce Davidson, Patty Browning, and David Browning. But David was not playing the Mayberry deputy. To stay current on the latest Shrews news, including a sneak peek from the set, you can visit KillerShrewsMovie.com. And the link, it will be in the eBullet if you check out the issue for November 2011. Meanwhile, James still found time for a successful Dukes of Hazzard event in Virginia in August and Mayberry Days in Mount Airy in September of 2011. And he also continues to be an avid painter. He specializes in barns. No, Goober, he's not painting actual barns. He's painting landscapes and on oil canvas. So you need to check those out. James Best has great stuff. He has a website full of artwork. I have one hanging in my house. That's not part of the eBullet, but that's just commentary by Allan. And back to the eBullet, Roland White. He was one of the country boys in an episode of Mayberry on Record. They're playing music. Roland White is a recipient of the 2011 Distinguished Achievement Award from the International Bluegrass Association. He keeps tab, or you can keep tabs on Roland at RolandWhiteMusic.com. Julie Adams, you remember her, Nurse Mary and the County Nurse, from episode 56. She has published her autobiography, The Lucky Southern Star, Reflections from the Black Lagoon. Now, you might wonder why it says that, but she was in The Creature from the Black Lagoon. She was the love interest of the creature. You remember he was trying to get her. Anyway, you can check out the book and a schedule of appearances and things like that at her website at Julie Adams, Julie Adams.biz. Now to some sad news here in Mayberry. We're sad to report the passing of actor Sid Melton, who appears as the press agent Pat Michaels in 2 episodes of The Andy Griffith Show, Taylor's in Hollywood, number 167, and The Hollywood Party, episode 168. He died in Burbank, California from complications from pneumonia. He was 94 years old. He was born Sidney Meltzer, M-E-L-T-Z-E-R, Meltzer, on May 22nd, 1917 in Brooklyn, New York. One of 5 children. Sid Melton is probably best remembered and beloved as handyman Alf Monroe on 26 episodes of Green Acres. You remember him and his sister Ralph? You remember that was played by Mary Grace Canfield. Also, she also played Mayberry's Mary Grace Gossage, Thelma Lou's cousin in Montgomery Light. Do you remember her? Anyway, Sid's connections to the larger Mayberry family also extend to 49 episodes as Charlie Harper in the Danny Thomas Show, and 4 episodes as lovable con man Friendly Freddy in Gomer Pyle USMC. He's another of the legendary actors, or character actors, so many of whom have passed through Mayberry, who are a constant presence on TV and in movies for decades. In Sid's case, 6 decades. Sid was one of those people who was always eager to be around other people, whether they were fellow actors or fans. Everyone was a friend. Sid was always ready to entertain. He lived a long, full life, and he has left a body of work that will continue to delight audiences for generations to come. Our condolences go out to his many friends and family. I hate to lose him, but definitely remember him from Green Acres, and from the Andy Griffith Show. I remember him, but Green Acres is obviously what I remember him best from. Folks, there is so much more information available. There's stuff about Mayberry Days. There's pictures. There's information about the chapters that have been started of the Andy Griffith Show Rerun Watchers Club. There's all kinds of chapter news, and maybe I'll get into some of that later. There's even pictures from the recent Mayberry cruise, so check that out. And, of course, there's all kinds of stuff in there from weaversdepartmentstore.com, merchandise updates. So I want to encourage you to drop by over to the imayberry.com website and check it out. There will be a link right there on the front for the bullet. You'll see it, eBullet, and it'll be from November 2011, so go and check it out. All right, now I got one quick thing. I don't know how quick it'll be, but I wanted to read this to you. It's a really nice little bit of feedback we got from last week's episode called Mayberry is a Rockin'. We're running a little long, but I wanted to read this anyway. Janet Anderson wrote in and said, Allan, I love good old-fashioned porch sitting, because that's what the episode last week was about. If you check it out in episode 162, she says, I love old-fashioned porch sitting, just as it was done in Mayberry. Unfortunately, I neither have a front or a back porch for sitting and tend to gaze longingly at homes I see with nice big porches. Just the other day, we drove past a large, old, well-kept house here in town, and my husband, who is well aware of my penchant for porches, he pointed it out, the beautiful porch, complete with a comfortable-looking outdoor furniture. I said, yes, and look at it. It even has a ceiling fan. Well, maybe someday I'll have a lovely sitting porch of my own. In the meantime, I do have a memory to share. This sounds like something off of Mayberry to me, folks, so check this out. This one is from only a couple of years ago. My daughter and I had made a new friend. She lived down the road from my parents, who are country dwellers. During one of our visits out to the farm, I was taking a walk, and my daughter was riding her bike with me. We passed a charming little house at the foot of a small hill tucked in a cluster of trees. I knew that the house had recently sold and wondered who the new owners were. As we drew near, I saw a lady out weeding some flowers. I offered a friendly hello to her as I passed, and she responded, so I stopped and we chatted for a while. I took an instant liking to her, as did my daughter. So the next time we visited my folks, we went for a walk, and we dropped by to see her again. Well, she was in the middle of doing something, but asked if we'd stop on our way back from our walk, and we did. By that time, it was early evening, and the summer sun was hanging low in the western sky. My new friend invited us onto her porch, a nice sitting porch with 2 large, comfortable rocking chairs and a rustic table between us. She went in the house and shortly came out with glasses of peached iced tea. We leisurely rocked and sipped tea and got to know one another while my daughter romped with the family dog. We laughed and we talked until the sun started to slip below the horizon and the sky took on a soft pastel hues. Then it was time to go, but we returned for more visits whenever we were out at the farm. Unfortunately, my friend and her husband moved a few states away the following year to pursue a job opportunity. But we stay in touch through email. And the last time I emailed her, which was pretty recently, I mentioned that every time I make peach tea, I relive that warm summer evening on her porch. I think peach tea will prompt that sweet memory for a long time to come. The house has a new owner now, and we haven't had an opportunity yet to meet her. But if that time ever comes, I hope she'll invite us to sit on her porch once more in those rockers that my friend left behind. And perhaps one day I'll have a porch of my dreams. If so, I'll be on the lookout for friendly passerbys to invite them to come up and sit down for a spell, and I'll anticipate pleasant memories yet to be made. That's from Janet Anderson. Janet, thanks for writing in, and that does sound like Mayberry, doesn't it? And it's kind of what we were talking about last week on the episode. I really think we just need to slow down, take it easy, and enjoy a little bit of that Mayberry feeling. I've got a couple of more real short ones. Laura Wheeler wrote in on Facebook about that same episode, and she said, Allan, I just had to comment on this podcast. It was so special and sends out such an important message. I know people who think I'm just nuts for loving Andy Griffith Show as much as I do. This podcast reminded me why I love it so much. Thank you for the wonderful message. Well, thank you, Laura. Appreciate that. And Robin Wilson said it's one of her favorites. Words to live by in our hectic life. Slow down. What's your hurry? Is what it said. So, Robin, thanks. And finally, from Don, these are all on Facebook, folks. He said, I love your podcast. This one is in the spirit of Mayberry. Thanks. So I want to thank all of you guys for taking time to write in. That episode last week was Jim Clark. Again, the writer of the eBullet. He was one that can capture the Mayberry spirit as good as anybody I know. And I think it came across when we just read his article and then talked about just a little bit of that message, to slow down, sit out on the front porch, visit with your friends, print out the eBullet and sit out there and read it. Wouldn't that be nice? To sit out on the porch and read about Mayberry and watch people walking by, and maybe you can make them some peach iced tea. I bet they're going to enjoy it. Well, folks, that's all I have for you tonight, and I want to thank you so much for just coming and spending time with me again here in Mayberry. And I hope you will write to me at floyd@imayberry.com, or you can call me at 888-684-8415, or you can go by Facebook at facebook.com/2chairs. Leave a note there. I'll get them. I read them, and I respond. Or finally, you can just drop by 2chairsnowaiting.com and leave a message like Janet did there, a comment on a podcast episode. Folks, I love to hear from you. It's really what it's all about, building this community and being part of Mayberry together. So I'll see you guys next week on 2 Chairs No Waiting, your Mayberry podcast. Bye, folks.